It looks like we're going right into a bush, but they're telling us that we can go into something that boats can apparently pass through. What the fuck?
In popular culture, pirates are identified by one iconic image, the Jolly Roger. Yet what most don't know is that the creator of the skull and cross swords design, Calico Jack Rackham, was a legendary pirate in his own right, renowned for his womanizing, bravado, and flair for the unexpected.
Hey, lady, what do they call you?
We're in Port Royal, Jamaica, formerly known as the wickedest city on earth and the original home to the pirates and buccaneers.
This is the place where Calico Jack Rackham committed some of his most notorious crimes, got busted, and was put to death. We came here to understand what made Jamaica such a hub of pirate activity, and why Calico Jack was so drawn to the place.
Port Royal was undoubtedly the richest and the wickedest place on earth. It was the most important city in the Western world.
In the oldest part of the city, we met up with a local historian named Captain Gordon to give us a sense of what it was like when Calico Jack ruled Port Royal.
More shipping used to pass through this port than the whole eastern seaboard. Being the entry point, everything came through here.
With its proximity to the world's most valuable trade routes, Port Royal became a boomtown for piracy in the late 17th century.
Jamaica was the hub at this time of the British Caribbean. Across the harbor from Kingston, Port Royal was this Sodom and Gomorrah kind of place where all the buccaneers used to go and carouse and womanize and drink and get into fights and kill people and spend lots of money. It was the original template for pirate life.
I can tell you straight up that we lost a portion of the city. That would basically what we refer to as the sunken city there.
But the old city of Port Royal is mostly underwater.
It's underwater.
The town grew so rapidly in one 10-year stretch that more than 2,000 buildings and 6,500 people were crammed onto this tiny spit of shifting sand that was just over a square mile in size. But in June of 1692, a devastating earthquake struck, killing almost half the town's residents in an instant and sending most of the city into the sea. The people who stuck behind to rebuild the city were those unafraid of a challenge: murderers, prostitutes, and pirates. Notoriety was earned through acts of boldness, violence, and bravery, and Calico Jack had those in spades.
Calico Jack Rackham wasn't known as being a great fighter particularly. I think he was known more for his flamboyance and recklessness. He had served under Charles Vane, and eventually the crew of Charles Vane's vessel deposed him and made Calico Jack the captain.
With the backing of his crewmates, Calico Jack laid siege upon the open ocean. As for Port Royal, the already fragile peninsula was further engulfed by floods in 1722, leaving the remnants of the pirates permanently embalmed in the waters just offshore. And for those intrepid enough to search, the treasures left behind are still on open display. We found two local fishermen, Chino and his brother Z, who've been diving these waters for over 40 years.
These artifacts is like from the old pirate days, and the city had sunk, so you got a lot of artifacts out there.
They said they'd take me to a remote part of the island where we might be able to see remnants of Calico Jack's attacks. Artifacts that might sell for more than $100,000 on the black market. Just so long as you knew where to look.
How many ships do you think are out in this harbor?
Maybe you can find hundreds of them.
Really? Hundreds?
Yeah. See cannons inside the water.
Those are huge cannons. They all look like they're 15 feet long.
One of that could weigh about 2,000 pounds.
Wow. Two more, right?
Yeah.
This is crazy. It's pretty much just a fort right below us. Look at that.
They say in his lifetime, Calico Jack amassed a fortune of about $1.6 million in today's money. Not a bad wage for a drunk, womanizing thief. These cannons are priceless, but are resting in waters that are now protected by the Jamaican authorities. Back in Rackham's day, they would have been typical of the arsenal of those same authorities that were hot on the heels of Calico, as he pillaged and plundered the coast.
Calico Jack ended up doing an extremely audacious thing. He started raiding vessels right off the Jamaican coast, very close to the principal naval base of the English presence in the Caribbean. And pretty soon he had all sorts of bounty hunters chasing after him.
With a hefty price on his head, Calico Jack headed to the Bahamas to get a royal pardon for his crimes as a pirate, in exchange for selling out his old mentor Charles Vane. As he went, he had to carefully evade the British and Spanish navies, as well as the bounty hunters who were after him.
The channel that we're going through, they used to use it years ago, like to shortcut to go through the mangroves. You arrive up in the Kingston Harbor.
It's the kind of place I'd imagine only a local would really know how to get around.
Boats will just pass in here, I wouldn't see you.
Nobody's gonna find you. You just hide out in these little coves, and whoever's coming through, you can just
you can
pick them off.
Yeah.
Mangroves like these were the ideal hiding place for flotillas of pirates in many small boats to attack larger frigates as they ventured into shallow water ports for harbor.
The pirates had a lot of things to be concerned about. I mean, ultimately, they didn't want to be apprehended by the authorities and brought to trial. So they were constantly looking for hideouts. They looked for secluded places where they would be unlikely to encounter unwanted naval attention. They could escape from their pursuers and hide in any of 100 unmarked coves and hideaways.
We're gonna show you that the boat can go up in this. So come down just
it looks like we're going right into a bush, but they're telling us that we can go into something that boats can apparently pass through.
Don't go up no further, don't go up no further.
What the fuck? We're in a bush.
They can't see you.
But yeah, you're just completely covered in here. Nobody can find you.
Nobody can find you.
Pretty much perfect pirate hideout.
Rackham used this kind of cover for camouflage as he made his way across the Caribbean. In the Bahamas, Jack continued to get himself in trouble. He fell in love with Anne Bonny, who became his partner in crime, but at the time was another man's wife. And after the governor refused to annul her marriage, the two stole a ship and escaped to the sea and resumed his life of piracy.
And let fall the courses, lads! We're sailing for Jamaica!
They headed back to Jamaica, attacking and pillaging other pirate ships along the way.
Anne Bonny is known through history as being a cross-dressing pirate, that she disguised herself as a man. And indeed, she's one of only a handful of women pirates that we know about from that time period.
This is Gallows Point. Years ago, you could see the Gallows out there.
So if you were coming into Kingston Harbor, you saw pirates hanging right there.
Right there.
Back in Jamaica in 1720, Calico Jack and his crew were terrorizing fishermen along the northern coast. When early one morning, hungover from the night before, they were boarded by an armed mercenary ship that had been hunting them. Jack and his men tried to flee, while Anne Bonny stayed to fight. They were captured and brought to trial in Spanish Town soon after.
Anne Bonny, she's found guilty as Calico Jack is. She tells Calico Jack in prison the last time that she sees him that she's sorry to see him condemned as a pirate, but that if he'd fought like a man, he needn't have died like a dog.
Calico Jack was tried, convicted, and hanged, and displayed in a gibbet, just outside the waters of Port Royal for all to see.
So this is where Jack Rackham was hanged?
This is where Jack Rackham was hanged.
Where exactly was he hanged on this?
So if everybody should pass and see the
Probably over there?
Right.
Yeah. So the pirates who ruled the era lived a pretty short life, from what you can tell me, pretty awesome life over there.
Yeah.
But they wound up dead right here pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's pretty quick.
And so went the era of the pirates. A short spell of decadence and violence. Its heroes lost to time in the gallows, but forever entombed in the sea.